We're talking IoTsy. Flipping IoTsy. We're talking IoTsy. Flipping IoTsy.
So welcome to another IoTsy. This is a really special one, this special podcast, because it's our 3-year birthday. So I'm here with Mark, who's our MD.
Hi.
So Mark, I've got a question for you.
Okay.
So thinking back to this time 3 years ago, 6th of Feb, what were your hopes and dreams for now, 3 years' time?
Wow. Well, let me answer that in sort of two ways. One, the context of the situation that I was in, and then ultimately the thought process of what I wasn't even called MKL in my head at the time, of ultimately what I started my own business. So 3 years ago, I think I was the second time being made redundant within the course of a year, 12 months, I think it was. Yeah, 12 months. Yeah, I mean, talk about a confidence boost. I got made redundant from Whitbread, where I worked at the time, and then left there, went to Welcome Break, was there for 10 months, binned from there. What's really funny about that story, by the way, is the day that I was canned, it was my boss's birthday. So let me give you a quick story about that, because that was hilarious and equally painful. I think more so for him than me. I don't know, but it definitely, I was comfortable with it, but you got taken into a room, as is usually the case of people that have seen this and been binned. And it was a case of, look, it's not really working out, so we're going to call it a day. I mean, complete surprise. Bearing in mind, I think it's like the first week back in January after Christmas 2018. So it was his boss's birthday that week. So, we'd all clumped together to buy him something. I was the one that collected the money, went out at the weekend prior to the Monday of being binned, bought him it, wrapped it, put it in the boot of my car. So I won't tell you the ins and outs of the binning, but it was I won't even say it's a mutual agreement. It was I don't like your style, or we don't like your style, and you're not really a good fit here, in no uncertain words. So, okay, fair enough. I can take that. So as we're going out and we're walking into the car park, and this was like immediate effect, so go. I said to him, I went, I just come to the boot of my car, something I want to give you. So he's just canned me, and I'm subsequently pressing the button on the boot of my car, and the button's like a really crap game show prize going, take out this really badly wrapped present and go, happy birthday. And he just went,
Oh, no.
like a cherry tomato. And then I remember, obviously, Sharon at the time was working there, going over to Newport Pagnell service station northbound. I think you were doing the kiosk project.
Yeah.
And then saying, it's over. I'm going. It's over. I'm going. And then leaving, ringing home, and obviously going through the process of leaving home. Bearing in mind, from Newport Pagnell to home from me, I'd say it's a good 2 hours, just over 2 hour drive. So a lot of time to reflect and think, like the shock of capture. How can this happen again? It's the second time it's happened within 12 months. I hate everybody. It's everybody's fault, or they don't understand me. It's something they've not seen. I'll get into this later into the conversation, but I just want to mark it now as a sort of a mental marker point for myself, is what I didn't do and what subsequently I have done now is reflected back on myself, of my performance. Could there have been things that I could have done differently? And I think if I didn't go on that journey, we wouldn't be at the 3 year point now. I genuinely believe that. And I've been listening and reading a lot lately about psychology, and Carl Jung, famous psychologist, a long time ago, talks about the shadow, and there's sort of like two sides between order and chaos, and how you wrestle with that in yourself. But that was a very painful journey. So I remember being sat around my kitchen table, dreading going and having conversations again with recruiters, because it was just, you'll know what it's like going and talking to recruiters. I always got told, very good piece of advice was, if you find a good recruiter, stick with them, a bit like a real estate person, because they are very, very, very hard to find, but I remember having a conversation with a recruiter, and they said to me, have you ever thought about day rate stuff? Not consulting as such, but more doing day rate work. And they said, well, how does that work? Well, you need to set up a company. Bearing in mind, I had an MBA at the time. Well, I still have. I just lose it. But I finished my MBA, God knows how long ago. And I was sat there going, well, how do I do that? And people, you just assume, don't you, going, well, I've got a business degree, so I know how to register a company on Companies House and set up the insurances and all that lot. I have a clue. So it was a case of, well, what do we do? And at the time I was speaking to my brother, who is my business partner. He was already in a company, and I was in Morrison's car park in Rothwell in Leeds, and I rang him a couple of days after the binning, and a couple of days after being given the chase round by recruiters, and a couple of days after people saying, well, why don't you do day rate stuff? And I asked him his honest opinion about running a business. He'd been running a business now for 6 years. It was at £2.5 million turnover, successful, very successful in a lot of ways. And I remember him saying to me, when it's good, it's great. And when it's bad, it's horrendous. So if you're prepared for that, then do it. Just got a very long story short, that started the company. I didn't know what to call it. My wife at the time, not with her anymore. My wife said, well, why don't you name it after the family, MKL, innovation? The innovation part was to not pigeonhole me into a specific genre, but the MKL was Mark, Kelly, Lucas. Started it as that. I did a day rate work within a hospitality sector business, a well-known one, running restaurants. And the reason why I took that role was to put much needed cash into which is obviously a lifeblood of a startup, into the business, while my business partner and brother John helped set up the business. So obviously he knew how to set up a business. What I knew was how to do transformational change programs, that bullshit corporate speak. I knew how to do that. So I said, well, why don't I go and day rate for 6 months, put that cash into the business. As that cash is coming up to into the business, you help set up the which is really important, the fundamental admin side, the insurances, the accreditations, how you're going to get paid, QuickBooks, all that stuff. I didn't know. So John was massively valuable at the time, and subsequently still is. But what was my hopes and aspirations at that time? It was survival, if I'm being honest with you, because I just couldn't face going back into the corporate world. But not that I was unsuccessful in the corporate world. I mean, I never set the world on fire, and equally I wasn't shocking. I was sort of mediocre. I could never really find my rhythm. I was always something to rub against. There was always something I didn't like. The bullshit politics, the games, the stop start. It was massively infuriating, and I thought I was paid well at the time. You going on 2 or 3 holidays a year. Do your garden. Very middle class, boring life. And I was miserable, absolutely miserable, even to the point of prior to getting binned, absolutely miserable. Hated it, hated every second of it. So it was almost like getting pushed out the second time. Now I look back 3 years ago to the 6th, which was obviously yesterday, Saturday. It was the best thing that ever happened to me in my life, both professionally and mentally, from a mental health point of view, because it was just miserable, absolutely miserable. But in terms of aspirations for the company, it was, well, I just want to survive. And it was more of a case of, oh God, I don't want to, I'm not comparing myself to this individual at all, but it almost felt a bit like what it must have been like, obviously figuratively for me, not literally as it did for this person, but Columbus, when he set sail out into the ocean, imagine him stood on his ship and he says to his crew, right, off we go. They don't know what they're going into. They don't really know what they're going to find. Obviously, it turned out well for him from what he found. But for me, it felt very much like that, as in, I have no idea what's going to happen. It could all end tomorrow, for all I know. But what I did know is I was prepared to work my absolute ass off for it. And if it failed, it failed. We have these conversations all the time. And one was Ray Lewis was a great, was an NFL player, and subsequently the Super Bowl's on tonight. But he always said a saying that she's stuck with me for years now. Only you can judge effort. And I remember having those conversations with John at the time when we were setting up the companies, saying, if we can get through this the next week, day one, week, month, year, and we can look ourselves at each other, but also when you're alone, and there's no run around and there's no bullshit that you can mask it with, you can look at yourself in the mirror and say, I have given everything within my power, ethically, legally, in my power to do everything I can to do this business. And if it fails, at least you can, it would hurt like crazy, but at least you can have your head held high. And I would argue 3 years of doing this, if you went back into the corporate world, two things would happen. One, I'd probably be unmanageable. And two, you would be like a firestorm, because imagine, it's almost like, I'm going to say a film reference or a TV program reference. And for those watching, if you ever talk to Sharon, don't ever bother doing a film or a TV reference, because she'll just go, what's that?
I can't tell you, I worked too hard, sorry.
Oh, right. Okay. Well, when I was in the corporate world and I was a bum and I had it easy, actually, no, it was before I joined the military. Band of Brothers was out at the time.
I did watch that.
Program. Oh, fantastic. Yeah, so Band of Brothers, Easy Company, fantastic documentary. If anybody's watching this and you haven't seen it, oh my God, go watch it. Absolutely fantastic. But it was Captain Winters was, he was constantly promoted to the point where he'd go from bayoneting people in the face in the trenches to then being at the rear, commanding. And to follow that analogy through, running a business, especially in this day and age and in this economy, running the business is like being in the trenches, hand-to-hand combat, day-to-day. To then be pulled out of that and put in a nice cushy office role in a corporation, you would stand out like a red dot on a white wall massively, because the way that you carry yourself, engage people, want to get stuff done, hopefully it would be palpable, and your team that would be around you would be absolute beasts in a good way.
Yeah. But
you would rub a lot of people massively the wrong way. And I know I would go straight around that circle again. I would come in, people would go, this guy's great, 6 or 7 months of it, and they'd go, can't handle him, too much. And the reason for that is because it is so easy to cast a stone onto somebody else rather than reflect on yourself. It is so easy to do that. And I think for me, that's that's more of a deeper point that we'll hopefully get into a bit later. But to finish off that massive journey around the question. My hopes and aspirations for MKO when I set it up was relief in terms of hopefully having something different of a corporate job, but more survival. And I hope I survive, and I hope I can do this. So it was excitement, fear, and everything in between.
So 3 years down the line, what do you wish that you knew then that you know now?
Oh, that's a fantastic question. Patience would be a good one. We, as you'll know, John is exactly the same. Being patient, patience is a virtue, but I think we've got a weird, bizarre mix of being impatient in the short term, but patient in the long term, if that makes any sense. So what I mean by that is, well, you'll know, you've been in meetings before in the corporate world, and something will get agreed. You come out of that and go, right, let's do it. Oh, hang on, let's have another meeting, pull that report together for me. 3 or 4 weeks later, nothing's actually happened. Which is why in this world, in our world, it's something's been agreed, it's happening. It is happening either right now or it is wheels have been put in motion. But so that's very impatient in the short term, which is key one. But it has taken us 3 years to get to the point now where we're building some of the stuff that we are now. And what I mean by that is in terms of the technology side. That's 3 years of pain, anguish, ups and downs, lost money, frustration, anger, disappointment. It's been hard to get to the point where we are now in terms of some of the things that we are doing now, some of the projects that we've delivered recently and subsequently got coming down the track. But at the start, if I could go back to the start, or have a time machine and go back and speak to Mark 3 years ago, I would explain to him about the difference between the two patients, whereas 3 years ago, everything was in the short-term patient box. So that was everything from long-term strategy to investments, money spent. It takes time for these things to come good. Equally, it takes time for them to see that they've turned bad. But we were very impatient, and I think we made a lot of mistakes. What do they say? You know these sayings better than me, but what do they say? Fail fast but learn quicker. And I don't know if I'm getting that right. I wish someone would have told me that back then, but I might have read it in a book or something. But reading something in a book and actually living it out is two different things. So I think patience would be one. I think the second one would be be easier on yourself, because when things don't go right, and this is a very hard thing about running a business is they tell you, don't they, constantly when you've got a normal job, make decisions, take on those decisions, make the responsibility. But I remember a boss telling me one time that he made a decision, it ultimately cost the company £70 million. It's a couple of £billion turnover business. But he said, well, I made the decision. But he wore that like a badge of honor. And I've reflected on that a lot. And what I've sort of come to the conclusion is, well, yes, of course, that was a decision. It was bad and it cost the company £75 million. But that's not his money. It's very, very, very different when you're making a decision to spend in relative terms a lot of money in regards to your turnover, and you get that wrong. That's painful, very painful, and you kick the absolute shit out yourself for days, if not weeks, as a result of that. But the more you do it, the more decisions you make. Some you get right, most you get wrong. But as long as you can learn from that, bank those learnings. I hate that saying, bank those learnings. If you take those learnings and then subsequently make different decisions, make the decisions bigger and faster, and the decisions get bigger and bigger and bigger, but you can take on those learnings quicker and quicker and quicker. I think that would be a key lesson. So patience in the short and the long term, but also don't beat yourself up too much when you get some things wrong. See it as a learning opportunity.
Yeah, there's a lot of power in that, though, isn't there? That accountability and responsibility of, if you fail, it's your fault. If you're successful, it's your fault. Again, going back to the survival mode you were in at the start, it's not a wonder that you felt impatient, because you're in survival mode. That's got to happen. Whereas now we're in a much more of a steady, thriving, well, not really steady because we're thriving, but we're in a position where, well, we're certainly out of survival mode now. We're doing really well. And that's where we're thinking about those big, hairy, audacious goals that we talk about a lot in MKL, about where we're going next. Where do you think we're going to be in those 5 years' time? If we're sat here now, what would that look like? I'm interested to see what you say here, because we move so fast. I mean, if you think where we've gone from kind of compliance to digital FM to IoT, with the additional piece of the CX arm on the side of it, very, very fast, all really successful. Especially the bit where you keep getting those emails. Tell us about those emails of the extra bit of MKL you don't know about.
God, yeah. So we on our website we have again, thanks to the CX side of the business. We'll come back to that in a minute. The CX pit, but you can get in touch with us in many ways and formats. All the socials that you can dream of, even Clubhouse. There's a form on there where you can fill out information. And what I've subsequently learned is there's a company called MKL, that's in America, that sells two things, amongst others. But these are the two things that we get a lot of questions for. One is those really cheap, those ball guns that massage, go really fast. That massage, sore muscles. But these are like the full fat 600-700 pound ones. These are like I went on their website and I looked like $20, so they're really crap. Get a lot of emails saying that their technology's failed. Other one was about cellulite lights and cream. Should their cellulite lamp have a LED lit green or red? So many options in terms of diversification there, in case we don't want to do the digitalization of FM. But you're right, because 5 years time, I mean, if you'd have said to me 3 years ago, we would have a very successful CX part of the business, one would have gone, well, what's CX? I have no idea what that is. And two, I'd have gone, well, okay. How does that fit in with what we're already trying to do? And subsequently, it fits in very well, as it should do with any business, I would argue. Any business should have a CXO and a CX strategy, and their website should reflect that, and they should live and breathe everything. I mean, a lot of companies say that, don't they? We're all about, because it's not just about customer services CX. It's everything to do with that experience of how they interact with you. But in terms of 5 years now, I think where I'd like us to get to is, so obviously the business is set up in a way where we do traditional electrical engineering work from an FM compliance point of view, and the digital side, and every now and again those beautiful worlds come in and sync. So you'll have an opportunity to do the traditional FM stuff, and then at the same time we'll get the order to put in some technology. Nirvana is that. More likely than not, in the moment, it's you'll get some traditional stuff and you'll get some digital stuff, and like I said, every now and again they'll cross. But where I'd like to get to in 5 years is that to be like that, and almost be one hand. So we don't need, or a client won't need to see their digital journey as being analog. They'll see it as digital. It will just be, I want it to get to a point where people will go, well, why wouldn't you have Renegade in there, or why wouldn't you have MKL doing this? And it is ludicrous to do it in that manual way. And nobody's bringing back the printing press because of technology that's replaced it. There's no reason why in 5 years' time we can't get to a point where, and it's happening already, massively disrupting a sector here, and it's exciting because it's almost like one of the last sectors to be digitalized in a lot of ways, because it's old school thinking with old school management styles in a lot of the way. But you do get those companies, the big ones, it's rare, but those big companies that get it, Waits being one of them, that understand that this is now not just becoming a nice to have sensors and energy management systems and HVAC controls and BMS integration, stuff like that. This is really important stuff, because the information that you can get from that and makes you extremely sticky to an end client. In the FM world, it doesn't matter if you've got an engineer in front of you. They could have an NG t-shirt on, a Vinci t-shirt on, a Mighty t-shirt on. What's really the differentiator? I mean, there are subtle differentiators. I'm not talking about price. I'm about in terms of systems and how they communicate with their clients. But really, that's why when one contract is lost, they choopy the engineer over because they're already on site. Now, you can choopy an engineer, you can't choopy the technology. So if you can digitalize your end client and show them things that they would never be able to see before, and the competition can't do that, it's very highly likely that they're going to stay with you. But more importantly, it's very highly likely that they're going to sign longer term agreements. And we're already seeing that now. We're seeing those contracts being won for, should have been on 2 years, being extended to 3 years because of the agreement that technology is going in. And it almost, it's like we're not there yet, but it's like like a wave is coming, and we're sort of like, if that's the bow of the wave, we're sort of like here. And I want to go up that wave until it crashes. But I want to go up that wave. And the more that we make those difficult decisions, such as the ones that we had to make at the height of the pandemic, as tragic as it is now in terms of the infection rates and the deaths, but as of the 7th of February 2021, but the height of the pandemic in March 2020, when nobody knew what was going on, and it was like the world had just stopped. We had to make some very difficult decisions, and those decisions obviously, unfortunately, meant that people lost their jobs, but also it meant that we took bold decisions as reinvesting back in the business in terms of the technology side of it as well. That's very hard to do when you're not knowing if your end client's going to pay you. You're having conversations in terms of invoices being late, but you make that decision to do it. There was a lot of late nights making those decisions, and a lot of staring at the walls, and a lot of, oh God, we could easily get this wrong and we could be out of business tomorrow, and then that's it. And then good luck trying to get a job in this economy. Bear in mind, think back to March 2020, end of March 2020, when it went into lockdown, unprecedented times. We haven't seen it again in our lifetime, but we're almost used to it now in terms of lockdowns. But yeah, that in the next 5 years, I think the digitalization of the FM world will have a rocket up its ass. I think from now on, COVID has helped in a lot of ways with that. As bad as COVID has been, in a lot of ways, COVID has helped digital and technology.
I know you said that this has been the most successful month financially for MKL. And do you put that down to digitalization coming through and customers being able to see the value of it? What's your thoughts?
I think it's a combination of things, really. I think I couldn't attribute it just to technology. I couldn't. I think it's a lot of it is to do with the culture of the business, how we engage clients. The CX side of it is really important, because again, when we say we're disrupting the FM world, I'd say we're disrupting it on two ways. Obviously, technology is one, but the second one is just by doing it right. And I'm not saying that everybody's doing it wrong, but what I mean by that is, I remember seeing a video once. I can't remember who the chap was off the top of my head, but he was a very successful business person. And he was talking about, everybody's looking for the next thing, that everybody's trying to develop the next Facebook or the next, Uber or Airbnb and stuff like that. And they come around every now and again, and those people are very lucky to ride that wave. But you can take any sector and disrupt it. You go to an area, find, if you want to do pizzas, find everything you can about the area, about the pizzas. What do people say? Well, they're normally late, they're normally cold. Service is a bit crap. I get my order wrong. You deliver them on time and hot and to what the customer wants, you will smash your competition 10 out of 10 times. And that ethos we've brought into us. So we've been told before in the early days, because you have a lot of naysayers when you start this stuff, that we're too honest. We're too honest. And the culture in some dark corners of the FM world is just say you can do it, promise the world, don't deliver on it, but they've already given you the contract now, so they're not going to go anywhere. And that to me was very foreign. Very foreign, as in a way of how to deal with end clients. And no wonder the FM world gets such a bad reputation, because that was the culture for many years of that. Is just stack it high, lie your ass off, deliver some of the bigger things, but don't deliver on other things. So we would always say to a client, and to this day, we always say to a client, this is what we can do, and this is what we can't do. If you're happy with what we can do, great, but we can make recommendations of what we can't do. So if we can't do that personally, we will find an alternative offering within our network who can deliver on that. And that has paid dividends tenfold for us in terms of the new work that we've won. The work that we won recently through Bellrock, and John was very happy with that. Been working to try to get into Bellrock for many years. I would argue that our honesty and our culture secured those agreements and secured that work, because not to betray any confidences, but it was almost like a breath of fresh air to have people sat in front of them saying, we can do that and we can't do that, and this is what we can do and this is how we can do it. And you'd be surprised how many people will go, well, this is different. I'm actually getting what I asked for. Bizarrely, but I think it's very interesting from a outside world looking in as to where we are at the moment. I think that world of blending digital has helped, in terms of finances, but being honest and open about what you can do and what you can't do is paid dividends. I've obviously seen in January last month, which was our most successful financial month of doing this in a lockdown.
Which is pretty impressive, isn't it? I mean, I do think, we often say how difficult it is to replicate someone else's culture, and how can be a huge differentiator, etc. And the ones with the best culture, the ones that win, all that stuff. Culture eats strategy for breakfast, we all know. But with our culture, I'd say that is a huge winner for us. We just really talked about it there, but the authenticity that comes across. I remember when I first joined MKL and saw the way that you guys treat customers, the way that you always say, okay, this is what we can do, and then you stand by and deliver. Pure authenticity, but also following up and just building relationships. That, I think, is one of the things that really has paid dividends, because once you've got a relationship with somebody and you've built that trust, then you see the business and the repeat business coming through. And if there is a slight slip up, people go, okay, well, we know that you can deliver, and things happen, and you always recover them properly. So I think it's a huge amount. It's down to culture. I really love the culture that we've got. It's brilliant. Exactly.
And it's, what do we say? Don't make people important when they're important. They're always important. If I had tattoos, another tattoo, I'd tattoo that on me somewhere. Especially in business, that is, you'd be surprised how crap people are at maintaining relationships. And it's hard to do. We're all busy. We're all busy. But if you're a business owner, it's not hard just to drop a message, to pick up the phone, no agenda, and just go, how are the kids? What did you do this weekend? One person who I think, other than yourself, who is absolutely fantastic at this, and I think is probably the best person I've ever seen at maintaining relationships, is John. He's very, very, very good at being non-intrusive, authentic, but actually caring when he's speaking to people and going, how are you? How are things going? I'm chatting football, ringing up a client and talking football. You'd be surprised how far that can go. Yeah. In terms of, of a reciprocal relationship. People are desperate for a connection. If I could put myself in their shoes on the other side of the fence in terms of the corporate world, you don't want transactions. People might say, I just want to find a supplier that can just transact me and give me what I want. It's bullshit. It is bullshit. Everybody wants a connection in some way. That connection can be through reciprocal business relationships. It can be through a connection through football. It could be a connection through you both got kids. But as soon as you have that connection and you genuinely care and you ask questions and you understand it, watch what happens. Just watch what happens. And I would say, you can label that stuff as, it's lazy to label that, should I say, sorry, in terms of CX. It's very lazy to label that as CX. That's one small nugget of CX, but there's a whole plethora of other strategies that go to make a CX business, MKL CX, or the CX that then subsequently comes through into MKL Innovation, live and breathe. It's not just about picking up the phone and saying, how are you? That's one part of it, but it's equally more important than that.
What would you say you're most proud of so far in your journey with MKL?
But as a business or personally?
Either one.
Unfortunately, there's some I can't speak about professionally, which I'd love to, because obviously there's NDAs in place and things like that in some of the work that we've done, which is a shame. It is a real shame, because these are names that I could only dream of working with. I guess ones I can speak about, I killed two birds with one stone, personally and professionally, was pitching directly to Lloyds Bank. That was a surreal experience in every sense of the word. We work a lot with Waits, and through Waits' innovation partnership. Well, I guess that's one of them as well. Becoming an innovation partner to Waits. There's quite a few, but I'd say in recent memory, being in front of people of that ilk in Lloyds, decision makers in Lloyds, and their partners, by the way. So there was their M&E, mechanical electrical partners there, big companies, Mighty and the like, were their decision makers in that room, and you're pitching. Oh my God, is that raw? And you are exposed. You are. It's almost like I can imagine it being, like a stand-up comedian. On the stage, everything's black, the audience is black, and there's a spotlight on you, and they go, entertain me for 25 minutes to half an hour, and at the end of it I'm going to ask you some questions. I think we did a video on it as well afterwards, but I remember where we did it, when we did it, and we left. Obviously, you were somewhere else in the country dialing in, and me and John were together. But I remember leaving, I can't remember where we were, somewhere in the country. But I remember leaving and walking down the street, and there was a Lloyds branch. And I looked at it, and I didn't say anything to John at the time, but it's like one of those little fist bump moments to go, if someone would have said to me, February 6, 2018, in less than 3 years' time, you're going to be stood in front of one of the biggest banks in the world, the biggest bank in the UK, pitching for them for technology and then subsequently being successful, I don't know what I said to that person. I don't know.
Do you remember looking at the scoring? How high you were?
Oh my God, yes. Oh yeah, thank you for reminding me of that. Yeah, obviously you are ranked, so when you pitch in, they which adds to the pressure, which you told beforehand, by the way. So you are being marked here, and you will be scored. I mean, as you would imagine from a bank, they do these things properly. So obviously, you know, they want to make everybody a fair crack at the whip. Everybody gets judged on the same questions, on the same category. And I think I can mention one of the other suppliers that pitched in there was Dyson. And we were better than them overall on the end scoring. And that was a real looking at the paperwork afterwards and going, what? We can actually do this. You know, we're not as full of shit as I think we are. You know, we can, you know, we can actually do this stuff. Because obviously, you know, you don't want to smoke your own dope, you know, so to speak. You don't want to believe your own hype. But for that brief second, I allowed myself to indulge in my own fantasies of the hype that was that day. So I'd say that, and then so that's professionally, but in the same story from a personal point of view, you know, have I ever had an opportunity like that in the corporate world to pitch at that level? No. You know, have I spoke at exec meetings and stuff like that? Well, yes, but it does not bear in comparison. It doesn't. Nothing's like it. Nothing. As much as you might say, you know, I've got a presentation the next day and I'm doing it to, you know, the exec and I'm nervous and all that lot. Yeah, I agree. It is nerve-wracking doing that stuff, but you have your own business and you pitch to a bank and then you be probed as a result of that. I would say in terms of our performance, I would go so further to say there's not that many people that can do that.
And go and have a look at the video if you've got time, because we videoed straight after when Mark and John came out of the pitch, and you can see. I remember you saying, Mark, "Oh, I've got. Yeah, what was he saying? I've got goose pimples,
goosebumps, yeah."
Bumps, yeah, because of the feeling of it, and they chuck you out at the end, don't they? They literally just remove you from the meeting.
Oh yeah,
all very, yeah. If you don't do it well, I can imagine you crash afterwards.
Oh yeah, it's you know, they say, you know, sink or swim moments. That's a sink or swim moment. As much as you think you can prepare for one of those things, and you can prepare for it, it's very different when those eyes are looking at you, and no one's there to bail you out because you're the owners of the company. So who's going to bail you out?
Yeah.
No one. You haven't got an exec sponsor on there to go, oh, I don't think he actually mean that. You know, what he actually meant was this. That's not there. You are cut adrift in the middle of the ocean, and you've got a little oil lamp and a paddle, and you got to get back to shore, and you paddle those little arms like there's no tomorrow. You know, like a swan metaphor would say, it was like really calm on the surface, but underneath is
yeah, we often say that though, don't we? There's just nowhere to hide in a small company like this. You've got to work really hard, and as we say, it's only down to you to succeed or not. And we really are. And that's interesting because you said about kind of believing the hype. And I was reflecting on what sort of thoughts about our third birthday and how far we'd got and what it was like for me looking in. Because obviously I knew you before you'd started your business, and I watched you start MKL with interest to see where it went, and I was kind of cheering you on from the sidelines. But I do remember reading all the blogs and kind of seeing you and catching up with you every now and again. You said, we were doing this now, this is our client, and me going, wow. And kind of thinking, wow, you know, there's a lot of hype around MKL. And you could quite easily go, do you believe the hype? And I remember joining and going, wow, it's even more fast paced and even more amazing. And the clients that you've got than I ever thought outside looking in. So I do think, obviously I have to believe the hype now because I'm in it and it's happening. But I remember thinking, wow, these guys must be working incredibly hard or being extremely lucky. And I know we've had the conversation several times because you said, just lucky and sort of passing it off, but I see how hard you and John work. I mean, you drive miles, you do all the call outs for the critical tasks that you have to do, even though it's COVID, you're away from your families a lot, you put a lot in, to the detriment of your health as well, I know. So yeah.
Well, it's the far burner things, isn't it? But I'm glad you said that, actually. I didn't want to just jump across there, but you just sparked something at the earlier question that you said, if you go back and, you know, talk to yourself. So I think I said at the start of this, you know, I've been doing a lot of listening podcasts and reading a lot. I think that's very helpful in some ways, because it's a nice, healthy distraction for everything else that's going on, and the business, and, you know, all that is reading or educating yourself. I think every now and again I like to play on the computer, but if I did that constantly, I know what my personality type is, so I'd get addicted to it and I'd just pour myself in that, and I'd feel like shit as a result. But to the point that you just said then, in terms of the hours and everything that we've done, I mean, we haven't had a day off yet this year. It's what, the 7th of February, but that's okay. Yeah, that's okay. That's okay. And I remember I read something the other day, and I've got it on my phone. I mean, I even sort of like circled it, because it was just, I was thinking about this in terms of this podcast coming up, and this one line, which I'm going to read out and then expand on, has really stuck with me. And it says, you know, the future can be made better if the proper sacrifices take place in the present. Then it also goes on to say, no other animal has ever figured that out in terms of us as a species. Do you know how much blood and literal sacrifices had to be made for a better future? What I mean by that is, we for 20 or 30,000 years, maybe even longer, did human sacrifices in the hope for rain. So you were sacrificing the now for something better in the future. They were literal sacrifices. And we didn't work out for a long time that we could do those figuratively. So I'm going to not play on the computer, and I'm going to cause myself pain and do some research because I've got a presentation tomorrow or next week or whatever it is. So that's sacrificing the now for a better future. My God, I wish I knew that. That one line there is that's so powerful for me, and that's why I've gone really down the rabbit hole on this stuff. But that sacrificing the now for the future is so important when you're starting a business. And to give you some real examples of that, take money. Everybody thinks that you run your own business, you're a millionaire. You're not. Far from it. I would. Do you do it for the money? People that do it for the money, good luck to you. But I don't think you'll last very long. I didn't start this for the money. As I said at the start, I started it for survival. I didn't want to go back into the corporate world, but my pay, relative terms, from the corporate world to what I take on today, still, my pay hasn't changed for 3 years, is minuscule, a fraction. I pay myself enough to pay my mortgage and my utility bills and my food. That's it. The same for John. That's it. And the reason why we've done it in that way is because every single penny we earn, we put back in the business. So we don't jet off to Dubai. We don't have beautiful company cars. We don't buy fancy things. We don't go for fancy meals. When we're working away, we stay in travel lodges and eating Wetherspoons. We do that for sacrificing the now, because we know in the future things are going to be better. A lot of people will not make that sacrifice. They won't. They just won't. Maybe those people say, well, I can't afford to do that because of my mortgage. Well, then you're not sacrificing enough, because you could easily, well, I say easily, you could change your house, you could change your mortgage, you could. It's all possible. It is all possible. But how much are you willing to sacrifice for getting something that you truly want in the future? That's a question that you could mull over for years. But if I knew that 3 years ago, things wouldn't be different, but it'd be helpful. It'd be helpful to know that, to understand why we are the way we are. I was always trying to find something, a narrative to put over the reason why we did it in that way, but I couldn't find it. I didn't know why we paid ourselves that way, or maybe it was guilt in the early days. I don't want to take as much out as I want, as I could do, and all that lot. And I want to buy something else for the business that's going to help it grow. But that didn't feel right. It didn't stick in a lot of ways until I found this sort of thread of thinking. Was all about sorting yourself out, and this comes back to my point around when I left Welcome Break. It's easy to cast stones at others instead of reflecting on yourself. It's very hard to hold up a mirror to yourself and understand what you did wrong. And there's a lot of things that I did wrong in that situation. Maybe I was too aggressive. Maybe I could have positioned things better. Maybe I could have played the politics more, and they are. I say I could have done all those things, but I was, and I'm not making an excuse here, but I think on reflection, I was too outward looking instead of inward looking. I didn't have the balance right in terms of what I could be doing better. It was always, well, why aren't they getting it? They should get this. They should understand it. It makes sense. That's equally on me for being able to position it and taking those learnings into this. Getting to this point now, finding these narratives in terms of sacrificing the now for the present, sacrificing the present for the future, massively helpful from a mental point of view, a mental stability and health point of view.
So, and I totally get that. That makes sense. But as we said, we are always very forward thinking as a team. So let's move on slightly to that. So what happened on the 6th of February? Around this sort of time.
Oh, yes.
Your future that might keep you very grounded and think about what you could get in the future if you keep your head down.
Well, let me put some boundaries around what I'm going to say. What I mean by that is I don't want people to have a certain view of me of what I'm going to say. The reason why I look at this as a goal to achieve. It's got nothing to do with the status about it. It's more the engineering side of it. So one of my dreams, and it's been for a long time, is to own a Rolls Royce, specifically a Rolls Royce Ghost, because I think a Phantom's a bit too flamboyant. But the reason for that is it's got nothing to do with the status of that car. And what it represents, or what people think it represents, in terms of money, and they are very expensive, as you would imagine. It's the effort and everything that goes into making that car, the engineering side of it. We've had first-hand experience of that in a lot of ways, but that for me is the pinnacle of an achievement. In terms of being able to own a Rolls Royce. It's just, it's a dream. It's a dream. It's something I'd love to get to, but I think for me, it's you need to anchor those dreams in terms of, how do you, when you're having a really shit day, how do you see something that makes you, feel good? And, to your point, I'm looking at it now. February 6th in 1911 was it? 1911. These lovely ladies, the Spirit of Ecstasy was commissioned or patent, wasn't it? Of that, the design of this bizarrely was made February 6th, 1911. And that we came into, we started the company in February 6, 2018. Very bizarre that those dates correlate. But the reason why I have this is I need to see something. And bizarre, believe it or not, she can't face away from me. So I call this psychology, I don't know, but I always have to have it facing me. And I won't turn it around, because the only time I get to see this from your view, so you can see it from behind, is when I'm in the car driving it. Don't ask me why. I don't know why, but I like it looking at me, because then, yeah, exactly. Because then if I'm behind it, but yeah, that's very bizarre that was February 6th, and I've always wanted to own a Rolls Royce. I think those things are the time, the effort, the sweat and the tears, the passion. Dare I be so bold to say the passion? I can see that in ourselves in some way, in terms of the effort that goes in. To own a piece of that, I think you're owning a piece of history. I would say British history. I know it's owned by BMW Group, and you can say it's German. The only thing about that car that's German is the outer shell is made in Germany, and dipped in Germany. Everything else in terms of what goes on that car is in Britain. But that for me is the pinnacle of, if you can call it, I've made it. But it's the engineering side that nothing beats that. Nothing.
And I really like that you've got that anchor when you're staying in a travel lodge or you're doing hundreds of miles up and down the UK and you come home exhausted and your back's broken. You can go, okay, one day, that's what I'm aiming for. I really like that.
Yeah, well, exactly. So that sits in my living room above my TV because, yeah, that's a nice way to phrase it, I guess, is, 7 days a week, constant, late nights all over the place. Travel lodge are great, and it's very hit and miss in terms of the accommodation. Nothing's open, so it's pot noodles in your room, a fiddly foodle, as we call them. But to come home and then, yeah, exactly. To come home and see that though, that's it's a nice anchor. That's the best way to describe it.
Mm. So this is our birthday podcast. So obviously this is a lockdown birthday for us, which is a shame because I had all sorts of plans for how we were going to celebrate and how we were going to celebrate with our customers as well, which obviously we can't just yet. But this is not the only celebration that we'll have. We'll have another one when we're allowed to get out and lick people. But yeah, so I just wanted to say, happy birthday to everyone in the team, to our customers, and especially to you, Mark, because you've been there right from the start. This is kind of your brainchild, and you've been extremely successful in bringing us all together and the amazing clients and successes that you've had. Who would you like to kind of give a shout out to along the way? Who's been there, or that you want to call out?
Well, obviously yourself. I think, like you said, from the sidelines looking in, it's easy to, get the stories. And I know at the time you were in the corporate world, and always massively supportive. But then it's very helpful to have you in the actual business now, because the things that you can do with our clients and also with our developers is, I generally don't think you can buy that. I think, you can buy, of course you can buy a CX professional. Of course you can. You just go and say, well, do you want to come and work here and I'll pay you this? But it's different when the heart and the mind is in it as well. You can't buy that. Unless the person wants to give that, I'd say. So that's ultimately, God, you definitely be the first one. From I don't want, our customers are fantastic. I think I wouldn't want to single out any individual customer, but I think there's been things that our customers have done over lockdown that have genuinely blown me away, especially at the start of the pandemic. I think the pandemic in a lot of ways has been a great equalizer. And what I mean by that is it's removed people's masks. So people's masks have slipped to the point where you see who they truly are when their back's against the wall in these situations. And people who seem nice can and will reveal themselves as a dragon. But also people who might seem like a dragon can seem nice. And vice versa, people who seem nice are nice. But some of the things that our clients have done for us in terms of early payments of invoices, bringing work forward, giving additional work to us that they didn't necessarily need to give, but they wanted to. And these are big companies. That tells me that we're doing something right, because they could easily squish you with their boot heel. They could. I'm not naive enough to think that they couldn't. But when you're given that level of generosity, it sort of reinstills your faith in people, I would say. COVID can make you very bitter in terms of how people act. And we've experienced some of that over the journey of COVID in 2020. We have had a lot of frustrations in some ways with that, but equally and more so, we've seen more kindness and generosity, which again has changed my opinion massively on people in general. So our clients and our customers, they are they're amazing, and there's obviously one or two individuals that go above and beyond. One person I think specifically I can mention is Zainab in Waits.
Yeah.
She's got a hard job, very hard job, but she believes in it. The things that she's helped us with, and the pushing that she's done internally in terms of that business, off her own back. Again, it just reinstills your faith in some ways in humanity, to say that there's actually genuine people out there who genuinely want you to succeed. Again, going into this 3 years ago, I don't know if I could say I was a horrible person, but I had a very one-sided view of situations commercially, that everybody's trying to get something and screw the next person over as a result of that. And in a lot of ways, you do see that. But every now and again, you get those individuals that are genuine and genuinely want you to succeed, and they are very, very, very rare. And Zainab sits in that camp.
She does.
She needs to be protected at all costs, I would say. So yeah, and I've you reflect of where we are now to where we were 3 years ago, and the clients that we have now. One of them, just one of them, would have been a dream come true, and that is a real watch out for us in some ways. Is we will never, I think it comes back to that, sacrificing the present for the future, but we never give ourselves opportunity to pause and reflect and
celebrate.
And well, yeah, because I don't know, is it a personality trait, or is it, is it just moving that fast you don't have the time? I think it's a bit of both. And plus, I don't know. Celebration. I feel like a bit like a fraud if I celebrated, because I'd be like, well, what have we achieved? And I go, yeah, we've achieved a lot, but we're not there yet. I don't know what there yet looks like. I couldn't tell you. Is it when you turn over £5 million, £10 million, when you have your Rolls Royce, all that? Probably not, because it'll be, well, we're not there yet. We're not there yet. We're not there yet. I don't know. Maybe that's what the Amazon culture was, wasn't it? Jeff Bezos says, it's day one. Ours is very much we're not there yet. What is there? I don't know, but we just keep going. It's like a greyhound. Just let it run. And it'll run into a few walls every now and again, but eventually it'll find its way and go in the right direction.
Yeah. Well, this is a more digital celebration, or all we can do in lockdown, compared to one of the years you had fish finger sandwiches, didn't you? You and John, as your celebration.
Oh, yeah, we did. Well, we were working yesterday. So obviously, again, in a COVID world, for our birthday dinner, I say John, but John's wife made chili con carne. Yeah. And we had the little boats though, and cheese and sprinkled cheese, because it's your birthday. So why would you not have that? But yeah, it is a digital celebration, but I also think it's an opportunity for, let's not forget there's a lot of people out there that are in that space between of they've just been binned, or they think they're going to get fired, or not fired, or made redundant, or whatever that might be. So I'm hoping that some of the things that we say and talk about will, I mean, if it helps just one person, then great. But I've said this before in previous podcasts, haven't I, about in terms of entrepreneurship, it's massively glamorized these days. Oh my God. I've, as you know, and you have as well, with me, both of us have met people that are crate paper strong. And that they have just not got it in them to do this stuff. It's backbreaking. It's psychologically, anybody who would do this for fun is insane. But I wouldn't change it for the world. I wouldn't do anything different. I never go back into the corporate world. I wouldn't. Even if I was the entrepreneur selling kebabs, I don't know. I couldn't have a job. People say, what's the best thing about doing this stuff? I would say it's the freedom. It's not the money. It's nothing like that. It's not even doing the pitches of the Lloyds and all that sort of stuff. It's the freedom. Well, yeah, if you have a crap day, you get to the end of that day, you've got no one to blame other than yourself.
Yeah.
And that's very liberating and scary, because you have to motivate yourself. But also you have to build a strong team around everybody, because you are going to have those days when you don't want to do something. You'd be inhuman to say you're 100 miles an hour every day. Things will be happening every day, but do you give it your all? I'd be lying if I said, yes, I do. Because some days you just feel like shit. If you call it fatigue, call it whatever, or I don't know, call it a mental wobble. And I think on those days, the time and effort that you put into investing physically, emotionally, psychologically in the team that sits in the business and around you pays dividends tenfold. I mean, I come to you a lot of the time for energy. You're a sunshine yellow sort of person, so I'm not. I'm very much, piss and bile in some ways. But it sounds like a dementor. I'll come for energy. But you need those people. I remember a boss of mine in Whitbread, classic INTJ sort of person. I'm very open about it as a result. He had quite a large team of direct reports, and then a bigger team that sat under those direct reports. I think it was like 8 or 9 direct reports, and then another 200 people that subsequently sat under that reporting structure. On a more than that, actually, because it was a COO, so a couple of thousand people that sat ultimately down the end of the hierarchy pyramid. And I remember being in a session, and he would say he'd take the time to build. What would he say? He would say, you find interesting, smart, bizarre people, all different, and mash them together in a team and see what happens. Because his methodology was very much, when I'm feeling like shit, I'm not feeling great, I will find my sunshine yellow people and sit with them, or go for a coffee with them. And half an hour after spending time with them, they've given me a boost for the day to then go on and do my thing. And he didn't tell people this, that was his sort of like thought process. And I very much believe in that. Call that selfish or call that however you see fit in terms of feeding off people. But I don't think it is that. I think it's, it comes back to my point around everybody wants a connection. There's nothing better than feeling needed. And a lot of studies and a lot of literature backs up in terms of how do you solve loneliness and depression is bizarrely take on responsibility. How do you take on responsibility? That can all start from tidying your room, making your bed in the morning, and then you go from there. When you get responsibility for yourself and you feel like you've got more to give, then maybe you've got some responsibility you can take on for your family. And then once that gets more, then you feel like you can give more, then you take responsibility on for your community. And you, lo and behold, and you watch what happens to your mental state as a result of that. That for me is a big cure and a big psychological help pill of running a business. Running a business is as difficult and as hard as the people say it is massively beneficial for your mental health because of the responsibility that you take on as a result of that. That's my view of it. To help with those difficult times is take on some responsibility, and that doesn't mean take on responsibility of trying to change the economy or I don't know, getting Boris Johnson out of office. It might be a case of just make your bed in the morning. Take that responsibility, and once you start doing that, do something more and more and more and more. It's long and it's a long process, but the more you do that, the better you'll be. And as I said at the start of this, when I came out of the corporate world into that, I was not in a good place. You know, you do think I've got an MBA, and you know, I went to Cambridge. You know, why wouldn't people want me? So, I mean, all relevant questions, I guess. But you can easily go in on yourself for that, and you know, why then would you subsequently start a business, you know, for survival? But then I quickly realized that actually your mental health improves as a result of being under tension, of being under stress, of, you know, negotiating with customers to pay and negotiating with suppliers and winning customers and pitching all those massive stresses that you believe singularly is a big thing, but then collectively is massive in itself, significantly improves your mental health. And that for me is why I would never go back. Because I know if I went back, I'd be miserable.
Well, I think we've come to the end, but is there anything else you want to say on this special day before we close?
No, just thank you to everybody. The reason why we chose this sort of forum is obviously because it's digital. You know, I'm here, you're in Leeds, and you're in Milton Keynes, so there's nothing we could do about that. It would be very different if it wasn't a COVID world. So here's to the 4th birthday. But more importantly, the reason why I wanted to do this format is the long form format is we found to be really popular with people because it's a natural conversation rather than it being shoehorned into a 20-minute bite-sized chunk. But we will naturally clip this up and do everything. But I just want to say thank you to everyone who watches this, everyone who supports us, everyone who's sent a nice tweet or made a nice comment on one of our posts on LinkedIn. Please don't underestimate how important that stuff is. To see you taking the time to say, great work, or love this, or fantastic, or even a like. Every single one of those, especially to myself, is it's almost like a metaphorical tap on my back. So yeah, just thank you to everyone, and thank you to yourself as well for agreeing to do this on a Sunday evening of all evenings. And yeah, the birthday banners behind you and the daffodils really help.
Yeah, a little flash of that, look.
Yeah. I'd show you my room, but it's a combination. It's a COVID room. It's a combination of educational charts for the 6-year-old on the wall, and laundry hangers in the corner of the room, and a gerbil. No one wants to see that. Yeah, a gerbil. Yeah, who's been very good actually during this. Normally kicking off and making some sort of racket, but she's just drinking her water and just watching, going, "What's going on here?" But,
listening intently, taking notes.
More importantly, is there anything you want to add? Before we end.
I think just to add to your thank yous, I would just really say how thankful I am to all of our customers and the trust they put on us. I mean, obviously we deliver, so hopefully we deserve it, but we've got some amazing customers, and I know we can't say a lot of the opportunities that we have come our way, and I know I don't get to come to many of them because I'm stuck here in lockdown, and I watch in envy as you guys go all over the place with some amazing clients and things you get to do. But yeah, I just think the opportunities that we've had have just been mind-blowing. So yeah, thank you for sticking with us and putting your money and your thoughts and your business our way. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, great. Okay. Well, thank you very much.
Thank you, Mark. Thank you everyone for watching.
Bye, everyone.
And
thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.